In this guide, we're going to look at how we can get more out of Lohar, have a chat about his talent and his functions in the game, whether that be Sunset Canyon or Peacekeeping. Lohar is, of course, one of the most important commanders early game, as he has one of the most important skills of the early game. That is, both commanders in the troop get up to 70% extra experience. This is a great skill. Hugely changes the early game, but it is an investment skill. You must outlay experience points to get it. This is where Lohar can get expensive, because the more you outlay, the longer it will take you to get the benefit of that skill. If we have a look at the two ways of obtaining Lohar, of course you must never ever spend an epic head on Lohar. You can't get him from the gold keys, so you must always obtain Lohar through blue bucklers and, of course, alliance gifts. You yourself must never run a green Lohar. That is completely ineffective use of your experience points. I can't stress it enough. You must not run green Lohar. What you can do, though, is when I start a new account, especially if I'm trying for the 1.5 million skin, I will have multiple support accounts and I will get them to kill lots of Lohar, jump and join my sleeper account, and then they will, of course, provide huge numbers of alliance gifts to my main account without my main account joining the green Lohar rallies. So 4 support accounts could chew their way through 20 or 30 green Lohars, which then give a chance of the head drop, and that is the most effective way, of course, of attaining Lohar heads. Other than that, you run the blue, which has the chance of 4 Lohar heads. The next important thing when obtaining Lohar is you must never ever spend on his skills until you have the 3rd skill open. Just save up those Lohar heads until he is level 30 and you have opened up the 3rd skill. You then will be 1-1-1 and then you can start spending Lohar heads. And of course, there's a bit of luck in it. That they will land in the Lohar trial, but this is just how you have to play it. Early game, of course, his only talent options are the reduced action points, the extra 15% in experience to start repaying your investment into him, and of course Trophy Hunter for the extra resources that a Peacekeeper can provide. But Lohar has an extra trick. He's one of the only Peacekeepers that can stack this skill here. So after killing a barbarian, he gets his concurring heal chant, which is an extra heal. But he also has a skill here, his 4th skill, where you will get another heal on top of that. There is an early event in the game where you must take 1 march out of your city and continually kill barbarians to score higher. And Lohar, of course, is key if you want to undertake that challenge. It's very easy to get top 100 just using your action points as they recover. But of course, once you take down a level, 15, 16 barbarian, your march might be a little injured, but you can then attack a level 12 or 11 or 10 barbarian. And because of these 2 skills, and even his natural heal, if it procs after 10 seconds, he can heal up again so that you can carry on doing that event and scoring a high score. So he can be used also from obviously killing barbarians. He can be used for early forts, but really only fort 1 and 2 and possibly 3 if you've got him to quite a high level. If you want to use him for forts, though, it might be best that he takes a 2nd seat in the peacekeeping. For example, you would then use Boudica Lohar or Archer Woman Lohar or Bella Lohar, because it's important for forts that you unlock Rejuvenate. Rejuvenate is 150 rage whenever a skill is used. So of course you have your first commander skill, your second commander skill, and that's a really valuable 300 rage, which of course changes his first skill significantly. So not only is his first skill obviously getting the extra 35% damage to barbarians, it will also cast a lot more regularly as the fight goes on. And as you know, a Fort 1 to, Fort 2 or 3 can sometimes be quite a long fight, especially when your troops are weaker at the start of the game. But it will be really important that instead of waiting 10 seconds for your attack and heal, your skill damage and heal, he can get it to proc every 7 seconds, which makes a huge difference throughout the life of the battle. Now, Lohor can function in Sunset Canyon, but it is a sacrifice, because if you want to keep him as a peacekeeper, or then say your skills will be over this side, he can only really function as a meat shield, because he will of course have his plus damage to barbarians is useless. His skill damage is only 450, which without the barbarian multipliers to make it a larger hit, it's a very small damage. But he can function as a meat shield because you tend to have him quite a high level, because you've been using him for all your peacekeeping needs or your barbarian killing needs. This can then function with the commander Saka, because of course if it's a meat shield, all you want is more troop capacity, so an extra 10% there with Lohor, and it's just a meat shield to protect the march behind it. Again, you could pop this guy in front as well. That's a Centurion. That's an extra 5% to troop capacity. But really, if you wanted to use him effectively in Sunset Canyon, you'd need to not only be looking at his Rejuvenate skill, you also need to be interested in his Expert Design, which means he can be a siege march. This is one of the most powerful early game talents in the game. So at max, it is an extra 18% to your march. 6% attack, 6% defense, 6% health. You then combine this with, when your troops are less than 50%, it's a 15% to defense, which is ginormous. You further combine this with fresh recruits, which is another 3%, which you have to view as an extra 3% attack, an extra 3% defense, and an extra 3% health. And then you start to get a tanky march. If you then pair him with Matilda, which is she is a bit of an investment, but she's a very powerful early game commander. If you're able to get any of her skills to drop, again, only open her first 3 skills before you spend any heads on Matilda. But if you're able to get them to drop into the Mora, especially getting it to 5, it's an extra 60% to your march, 30% health and 30% defense. And of course, the health and defense both stack as a defense or a tank march, which as a early game you can get fantastic trades out of Lohor with Matilda. Never open Matilda's last skill. I know it's that 15% troop capacity, but it's brilliant, but you've got better things to spend your epic heads on. You're never going to fill it early game to 15%, and that 20% minus to damage, it's too much for what you're trying to do. But that third skill there is fantastic. If you're unlucky, of course, things will land in Clever Heart, but you can't help that. But even the 10%, even that 20% is huge. That 20% is the same as most epic commanders have at 5 on their skill. Another person I sometimes, because you want Lohor can cast fast after the first 10 seconds of the battle, he can keep casting his skills quite fast every 7 seconds because of Rejuvenate. I sometimes put him with Lohar, Joan even. Joan when she's 5000 or 51, because of course I just want this to cast as much as possible. Also, if you're in the front line and you're sacrificing Lohar as a meat shield, this casting just before Lohar dies, if this cast, you get the full benefit of this skill. Where with skill damage, as the March is about to die, you get a very small skill hit. So that's one of the ways I use Lohar. Sometimes it's very easy to get Cleo 3, 4, 5 on the first skill. I will sometimes do Lohar Cleo, and then it's just buffing other marches. It's a siege meat shield. Having a siege meat shield, though, using Lohar as a siege meat shield is also another benefit to the blacksmith quest line. Because what you don't want to do, sometimes the quest line, as soon as you've done one blue item, you get the rewards for the next blue item, but it can be difficult to progress that. Where the blue gathering items have a lot of stats on them and are the cheapest blue items. They're not the cheapest in terms of gold, I think they're about the same. But I think one of them, there we are, this one's only 20 blue items, and it will progress your quest line. It'll be useful for gathering later on the next commander I'm going to talk about. But I say this is an extra 2% to damage, defense, and 2% to health. So early game, that's 4% on your march. It's all tanking stats. It's protecting the march behind Lohar, and can make Lohar really powerful early game. And they say you would tend to carry a march size advantage because you will use him as your peacekeeper all the time. You will tend to carry a march size advantage. So to recap, yes, of course he's the best peacekeeper, but he's beyond that. He's the best peacekeeper that he can go out there and he's able to heal his march whilst he's out on the field without returning to the camp. Secondly, he can be used for forts, but you've got to use that rejuvenate skill. But he does not have the skill damage really after fort 3s to be used for forts, and you will end up with a large hospital bill if you continue to use Lohar. Maybe Lohar Minamoto can carry it, but even so, I don't know why somebody with Minamoto would be using Lohar as their lead to run a fort. He has great function in Sunset Canyon. Using that even as a meat shield, keep him as a peacekeeper and just use him as a meat shield, he will tend to have a large march size. The heal will keep him up alive a little longer, but really his damage is very low unless you look, as I pointed out, to use him as a siege march and take advantage of the talents that he has hidden away that not many people know about or use. Of course, as you level him up higher, to then add on another, this will increase their attack by 6% for 3 seconds. Of course, if you can get counter attack right up high to make him even more tanky, there's also loose formation. He could be a real solid march on your front line. And as I say, as you steer XP into him naturally, to use him in Sunset can be powerful. But then you might need to make him a second march. So, but my main recommendation though for pairings is of course Lohar Matilda. That's all I've got at the moment for him. But I hope this maybe makes you think a little bit different about Lohar and how he can be used and how he is multifunctional. He's a really powerful commander. And I say the return on Lohar's trial is massive over time. After 100 days, it is absolutely ginormous what this 70% can produce. And remember, no pro player ever runs a green Lohar. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps somebody. I hope you enjoy my new Commander series. And we'll be moving on to the next one tomorrow. Thanks for watching.